board can then go back to the city and petition the city to reduce the fines. And that will have to be done on every single building that's been issued a violation, which would be every single building in the community. They'll do it in one lump sum, one case. They'll petition the city to reduce the fine, and then the city will consider all the extenuating circumstances, any mitigating circumstances the association wants to present at that hearing. Now, that leads me to the extenuating all the circumstances that have led to this point. Now, if we want to go back, it was the special assessment that's still ongoing for the 8-year special assessment. That was passed back in...
You're talking about
The one we ended in December.
The one that we ended in December.
That was more than 8 years ago.
It was more than 8 years ago.
10,
So
12 years.
that was passed by a board over 8 years ago to try to start collecting money from owners a little bit at a time, to try to defer the cost of the future work that the board knew was necessary. This association has not had reserves in 20 or ever? Okay.
Ever.
So, reserves are required by statute, but owners can vote to waive the funding of reserves. Owners have always waived the funding of reserves. That means that the association never had any money being reserved for future projects, future work. I mean, reserves are essentially a savings account. It's money you save a little bit at a time for future work that needs to be done. Your roof, your painting, your paving, anything else that is in excess of $10,000 replacement value. When owners waive reserves, that means you have no money saved up. That means when you need to have your roofs replaced, you're going to be assessed, and it's going to be a huge assessment to do the roof. That's kind of what happened in this situation. Because there was no funding of reserves, prior boards decided, hey, let's pass a special assessment, that we'll stretch it out over an 8-year period, and we'll start collecting a little bit of money to try to have something saved up when we know we have to do the work. Obviously, that amount of money was very small, but they did not want to put a burden on the owners, and did not want to affect the owners of having them end up in collections, having them end up in foreclosure. So they did a little bit. They figured something is better than nothing. Now, obviously, that number fell well short of what was needed for this project, but that special assessment was sufficient to deal with the electrical work that was needed. So without that special assessment, the electrical work would not have been able to be done as quickly as it was done. Your special assessment now, instead of being 4.9 million, would have been a whole lot larger than that. So that saved you guys some money in the long run. But again, that was the importance of having reserves, which again, owners decided to waive. So that's the first issue that arises. The board decides to do a special assessment. Then you have the issue of delinquencies over time. Omega Villas has had a historical issue with owners paying money, paying their assessments, paying their maintenance. So that caused a significant rise in delinquencies in the association.
Not paying, you said paying.
Huh?
You mean not paying?
Not paying, I'm sorry, not paying. Not paying, I guess people are paying now, but not paying. So what that led to was the association's inability to obtain financing, to obtain the loan to be able to do the work. I know, Jay, you spent how long was it that you spent trying to get the loan for the association?
Well, we went to, I think, a total of 5 banks, and we had banks that were willing to give loans starting a year ago at almost double the amount of insurance interest rates. So the ones that were willing to give based off of the delinquencies that we had were just way too high in terms of interest rates, and it would have really hurt the association. We finally were able to get our accountant to help us get our current loan, and they were able to take our history with that bank and give us the loan with a lower interest rate. That would be starting out with a line of credit, a 24-month drawdown period, and interest only, and then a lock-in to a loan that was at market rate. So it wound up being a perfect situation. It just took a really long time because they have to have the delinquency rate literally at 5%.
Right. So again, the historical issue is there's been a problem with delinquencies here in the community. Your fellow owners not paying their dues, and delinquencies, even if you're a month, 2 months behind, that's still considered a delinquency for the banks. That still shows up in your AR reports, your accounts receivable. That shows up as a delinquency. That affects your ability to get a loan. So and what Jay was talking about the banks, I know 5 banks. There's only a handful of banks that loan money to associations, and especially for this type of project. So you can't just walk into any bank and get a loan for an association project. There's only a few. I know you guys did the loan with Banco Popular, which is one of the banks that typically does this type of financing. So you are limited as to who you can go see and to try to get financing. So once those delinquencies were brought, under control, then the association was able to get the bank loan, that was a whole other process of back and forth regarding the terms. But that bank loan was obtained last year, and then the contract was finalized with the contractor regarding the work to be done. So again, you have the issue of no reserves, you have the issue of delinquencies, prohibiting the association from obtaining financing. You have more recent issues that have the rise in insurance premiums, which I know all of you are affected now because your maintenance did go up, and a large portion of that increase was as a result of insurance. So you have essentially this perfect storm of all these different financial issues affecting the community. And as much as prior boards tried to save some money, obviously it wasn't enough. If they would have done a larger special assessment back then, where does that leave the delinquencies? Now, maybe the association doesn't obtain a loan now because their delinquencies are so high because they're still trying to collect on special assessments that were passed some years ago because owners couldn't afford those special assessments. So if we had delinquencies with a very small special assessment, imagine delinquencies with an even larger special assessment. Again, this is one of the downfalls of not having reserves. You're kicking the can down the road. So is there anything?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the insurance. What drove the insurance?
Well, the insurance. You got 2 factors in insurance. Again, post Champlain Towers, the insurance companies have a higher risk and are afraid to insure properties here, condominiums in the state of Florida. And I know you guys are not a high-rise or mid-rise. You're essentially townhome villa style condos. They don't care. You're just high risk for insurance companies. And then the second issue that drove the insurance was all the recent hurricanes here. They've been paying out substantial amounts of money on property damage. Oh, well, the fires as well. I'm talking more specific to Florida, the hurricanes, Champlain Towers, but yes, the fires as well. So all these things are driving up the insurance costs. You've all heard of all the insurance companies essentially leaving the state, and you're left with a few, and most associations are having to rely on going to Citizens because they're one of the few games in town. Everyone is leaving Florida. No one wants to insure association, especially if they're at higher risk. And you guys particularly are at higher risk because of the condition of your roofs. That is partially what drives up your insurance premiums. And the last thing I want to talk about, the reduction of fines. Like I said, that will be something that they'll have to petition the city once the work is completed and the final report is submitted by Farouk to the city. Now, what the city reduces the fine, if anyone's going to ask, I do not know. The city of Plantation does it on a scale, meaning they have a worksheet. They put in their numbers in there, how much the fines have been, how long has the violations been running for, and they calculate a number there. Other cities do it on a flat number. Other cities will reduce the fine to 10% of the total amount. Other cities go lower. It varies. Now, this worksheet that City of Plantation does is not the be-all, end-all. They can deviate from that worksheet, but that would depend on what are the mitigating circumstances. Now, obviously, you guys have very good mitigating circumstances regarding all the financial issues you've encountered over the years, and you're probably going to encounter, in the upcoming years. A lot of associations are facing that same issue. So it really comes down to whoever the magistrate is at that point in time who is hearing this matter on the fine reduction, how sympathetic they are, and how much they can be convinced to reduce the fine. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. City of Plantation currently right now has 2 different magistrates that hear all violation hearings and all fine reduction hearings. They alternate from one month to the other. I can tell you that depending on who you get, you have a better shot than if you get the other one. There's one magistrate who is more sympathetic and would be willing to reduce it, another one who would say, I don't care. But
Let me ask you something,
yeah.
Carlos. So the board met with the previous
Mayor.
Mayor. You were at
I
that
was here,
meeting,
Jay was here, yes.
to make her aware of what this perfect storm and,